The beep of the heart monitor was my only companion in the sterile quiet of the ICU. A rhythmic reminder that I was still here, still breathing, despite the world crumbling around me. My name is Evelyn Harper, and at 52, I never imagined I'd be lying here, tethered to machines, my body a battleground of pain and survival. The accident had been Sedina's screech of tires, a flash of headlights, and then darkness. They told me I'd been in a coma for 3 days, but waking up felt less like a miracle and more like a punishment. My daughter, Claire, hadn't visited. Not once. Instead, my phone, miraculously intact, buzzed on the bedside table with a single text from her: "Mortgage is due. Send the money." "No, how are you?" "No, I'm scared." Just those cold, demanding words. I stared at the screen, my chest tightening, not from the tubes or the pain, but from the realization that my daughter, my only child, saw me as little more than a bank account. But what Claire didn't know, what no one knew, was that I'd sold the house. Our family home, the one she assumed she'd inherit, was gone, and with it, the last tether of our fractured bond. I closed my eyes, the weight of that secret pressing against my ribs, and let my mind drift back to where it all began. 20 years ago, our home on Maple Street was a sanctuary. It was a modest 2-story with creaky floors and a backyard where Claire used to chase fireflies. My husband, Tom, and I poured everything into that house: our savings, our dreams, our love. Claire was our light, a giggling toddler who'd smear paint on the walls and call it art. But Tom's death changed everything. A heart attack at 40, sudden and cruel, left me a widow and Claire fatherless at 10. I tried to be enough for her, working double shifts at the library, scrimping to keep the house, to give her the life Tom would have wanted. But Claire grew distant, her warmth replaced by a sullen resentment I couldn't pierce. By her teens, she was sneaking out, lying about where she'd been, her eyes hard with a defiance I didn't recognize. I thought it was grief, a phase, but it was more. It was betrayal, brewing like a storm I didn't see coming. When Claire was 18, she left for college, promising to stay in touch. She didn't. Calls went unanswered. Visits became rare. And when she did come home, it was only to ask for money. For textbooks, she'd say, or rent's tight this month. I gave her everything, draining my savings, taking out loans against the house, believing I was helping my daughter build a future. But last year, I found out the truth. A friend from church, Margaret, showed me a photo on her phony, a snapshot from a local bar. There was Claire, laughing, draped over a man twice her age. A man I recognized, Victor Grayson, a real estate mogul with a reputation as slick as oil. Margaret whispered that Claire had been living with him, not in some cramped student apartment, but in a penthouse downtown. The money I'd sent wasn't for school. It was for designer bags, lavish trips, a life she'd hidden from me. The betrayal cut deeper than Tom's death, a knife twisted by the realization that my daughter had used me, lied to me, while I worked myself to the bone. I sold the house 6 months ago. It wasn't an easy decision. Every room held memories: Tom's laughter in the kitchen, Claire's tiny handprints on the staircase. But the mortgage was crushing me, and the truth about Claire had shattered something inside. I couldn't keep pouring my soul into a home for a daughter who saw me as a means to an end. So, I met with a realtor, signed the papers, and moved into a small apartment across town. I didn't tell Claire. I didn't tell anyone. The money from the sale went into a savings account, a safety net for the future I was determined to reclaim. I told myself it was justice, a way to take back what she'd stolen from me. But lying here in the ICU, her text glowing on my phone, I wondered if it was revenge. The hospital room felt colder as I clutched the phone, my thumb hovering over the reply button. I wanted to tell her everything to scream that the house was gone, that her inheritance, her safety net, was dust. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the pain meds dulling my anger. Or maybe it was the faint memory of Claire as a child, her eyes wide with trust. I set the phone down and closed my eyes, the heart monitor's beep pulling me back to the night of the accident. I'd been driving home from the library, exhausted, when a car swerved into my lane. The police said it was a hit and run, the driver long gone. But in my dreams, I saw a face behind the wheel, a face I couldn't place but felt I should know. It haunted me, that flicker of recognition, like a puzzle piece just out of reach. A nurse entered, checking my chart, her voice soft but distant. "You're lucky to be alive, Mrs. Harper," she said. I didn't feel lucky. I felt like a woman unmoored, my life a tangle of lies and secrets. Claire's text was a reminder of the chasm between us, but it was also a spark. If I was going to survive this, not just the accident, but the wreckage of our family, I needed answers. Why had Claire lied for so long? What was she hiding? And why did that face in my dream feel like a warning? I didn't know it then, but the truth was closer than I thought, waiting in the shadows of the life I'd tried to rebuild. The ICU was a prison of white walls and antiseptic air, but my mind was a battlefield, replaying every moment that led me here. Claire's text burned in my thoughts, a stark reminder of the daughter I'd lost, not to tragedy, but to choices I couldn't understand. I wanted to believe there was still good in her, that the girl who once curled up in my lap still existed somewhere beneath the lies. But the more I thought about her life with Victor Grayson, the more my heart hardened. I'd sold the house to reclaim my life. But now, lying here, I wondered if it was also a way to punish her. The thought made me sick, not because it was cruel, but because it felt right. I drifted in and out of sleep, the pain meds blurring the edges of reality. In my dreams, the accident played on a loop, the screech of tires, the blinding headlights, that fleeting glimpse of the driver's face. Each time, I woke with a jolt, my heart racing, convinced I knew who it was. But the memory slipped away like smoke, leaving only dread. The police had no leads, no witnesses, just a vague description of a dark sedan speeding into the night. I told myself it was random, a cruel twist of fate. But deep down, I felt it wasn't. Someone had wanted me hurt, maybe dead, and the why of it gnawed at me. By the fourth day in the ICU, I was strong enough to sit up, though every movement felt like betrayal from my own body. The nurses encouraged me to rest, but rest was impossible when my mind was a storm of questions. I kept my phone close, checking for another message from Claire, but none came. Her silence was louder than her words, a void that echoed with indifference. I wanted to confront her, to demand why she'd used me, why she'd traded our bond for a life of luxury with a man like Victor. But I was too weak to call, too raw to face her voice. Instead, I called Margaret, the church friend who'd first shown me the truth about Claire. "Evelyn. Oh my God. Are you okay?" Margaret's voice was thick with worry when she answered. I told her about the accident, keeping my tone steady, though my hands shook. I asked if she'd seen Claire recently, if she knew anything more about her life with Victor. There was a pause, long enough to make my stomach twist. I didn't want to burden you, Margaret said finally, her voice low. But Claire's been different. She's been asking around about you, Evelyn, about your finances, your health. She came to church last month, all smiles, but it felt off. She was with Victor, and he was asking questions too about the house, about your plans. My breath caught. Claire had been digging into my life, and Victor was involved. The man was a predator, charming but ruthless, the kind who built his empire on other people's ruin. I'd seen his name in the papers, linked to shady deals and foreclosures that left families homeless. Why was he interested in me? In my house? I thanked Margaret and hung up, my mind racing. The house was gone, sold to a young couple who'd promised to fill it with love. But Claire didn't know that, and neither did Victor. Did they think I was still sitting on an asset they could claim? The thought sent a chill through me, sharper than the 4 in my arm. I started piecing things together, each fragment a shard of glass. Claire's lies about college, the money I'd sent. Her life with Victor, it wasn't just greed. It was calculated, a plan I hadn't seen because I'd been too busy loving her. And the accident, that face in my dream. Could it have been Victor? Someone he'd hired? The idea was insane, but it clung to me, a shadow I couldn't shake. I needed to know more, but I was trapped in this bed, my body a cage. That's when the door opened, and for the first time since I woke up, Claire walked in. She looked different, older, sharper. Her designer clothes a stark contrast to the hospital's sterile grays. Her eyes darted to the monitors, then to me, and for a moment, I saw something flicker: guilt, maybe, or fear. Mom, she said, her voice tight. You're awake. No hug, no tears, just those 2 words, like a formality. I wanted to scream, to ask why she'd lied, why she'd abandoned me. But my throat was dry, my strength gone. Instead, I nodded, watching her closely. She sat, her hands fidgeting, and I noticed a new ring on her finger, a diamond that glittered like a warning. I need to talk to you about the house, she said, her tone clipped. The mortgage is overdue. Victor says we could lose it. I stared at her, my heart pounding against the rhythm of the monitor. She didn't know. She thought the house was still ours, still hers to claim. I could have told her the truth right then, could have watched her world crumble as mine had. But something in her eyes stopped me, a crack in her facade, a hint of the girl I'd raised. I swallowed hard, my voice barely a whisper. Claire, I said, we need to talk. Claire's eyes narrowed at my words, a flicker of suspicion crossing her face. The hospital room seemed to shrink, the air thick with the weight of everything unsaid. I wanted to grab her, shake her, demand why she'd betrayed me. But my body betrayed me first, a sharp pain shooting through my chest as I tried to sit up straighter. The heart monitor beeped faster, a warning, and Claire's gaze darted to it, then back to me. You need to rest, Mom, she said, but there was no warmth in her voice, only a calculated calm. She leaned forward, her diamond ring catching the light, and I couldn't help but wonder how much of my money had paid for it. Claire, I said again, forcing my voice to stay steady. Why are you really here? Her lips parted, but no words came. She looked caught, like a deer in headlights. And for a moment, I saw the girl who used to confess her fears to me under the covers. But that girl was gone, replaced by this stranger who saw me as a problem to solve. The house, she said finally, her voice firm. Victor's been helping me figure things out. He says we can refinance, but we need your signature. You've been hard to reach. Hard to reach. The word stung. A cruel irony. I'd spent years reaching for her, chasing her affection through unanswered calls and empty promises. And now, here she was, sitting by my hospital bed, not because I'd nearly died, but because she thought I held the key to her next payout. I wanted to laugh, to cry, to tell her the house was gone, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I asked, what's Victor's interest in this? Why does he care about our house? Her face tightened, a mask slipping into place. He's just trying to help, she said, too quickly. He knows people. Mom. He can make things easier for us. Us. The word felt like a lie, a mockery of the family we used to be. I studied her, searching for a crack in her armor, a hint of the truth. But her eyes were guarded, her posture rigid, and I realized she wasn't here for me. She was here for Victor. The pain in my chest flared again, but this time it wasn't physical. It was the ache of a mother watching her child slip away, not to distance or time, but to something darker. I thought of the accident, the face in my dream, the dark sedan that had vanished into the night. Was it possible? Could Victor have orchestrated it, thinking I'd be out of the way, leaving the house to Claire and to him? The thought was a poison, spreading through me, but I had no proof. Only a mother's intuition and a lifetime of regrets. I sold the house, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. Claire froze, her eyes widening, her hands gripping the arms of the chair. What? She whispered, her voice barely audible. I took a shaky breath, the truth a weight lifting and crushing me all at once. 6 months ago. It's gone. Claire. The money's in a savings account. But the house, it's not ours anymore. Her face crumpled, not with sadness, but with something closer to panic. You can't be serious, she said, her voice rising. You sold our house. Without telling me. That was my future. Mom. Her words hit like a slap, and I felt the anger I'd buried for months surge to the surface. Your future. I shot back, my voice stronger than I felt. What about my future? Claire. The one I spent killing myself to give you. The one you threw away for Victor Grayson. She flinched, her cheeks flushing, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she stood, pacing the small room like a caged animal. You don't understand, she said, her voice shaking. Victor's not what you think. He's helping me, helping us. You had no right to sell the house without talking to me. No right. I laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the sterile room. I had every right. Claire. That house was mine, paid for with my sweat, my tears, my life. You didn't care about either until it suited you. Tell me, what does Victor want with it? What's he planning? She stopped pacing, her back to me, and I saw her shoulders tense. Nothing, she said, but her voice was too soft, too uncertain. I didn't believe her. I couldn't. The pieces were falling into place, each one sharper than the last. Victor's interest in the house, Claire's sudden visit, the accident, they weren't coincidences. They were threads in a web I'd been too blind to see. Claire, I said, my voice low. Look at me. She turned slowly, her eyes meeting mine. And for a moment, I saw fear. Not of me, but of something or someone else. What's going on? I asked. What are you not telling me? She opened her mouth, then closed it, her gaze dropping to the floor. The heart monitor beeped steadily, a metronome to our silence. And I knew then that whatever came next would change everything. The silence between us stretched, heavy and suffocating, as Claire stood by the window, her silhouette framed against the rain-streaked glass. I watched her, my daughter, my stranger, and felt a pang of longing for the days when her secrets were as simple as a hidden candy stash. But those days were gone, buried under years of lies and choices I couldn't undo. The heart monitor's steady rhythm was the only sound, a cruel reminder that I was still here, still fighting, even as my world unraveled. I wanted to reach for her, to pull her back to me. But the truth I'd just revealed, the house was gone, had built a wall between us, one I wasn't sure we could climb. Claire, I said again, softer this time. Talk to me. Please. She didn't move, didn't look at me, but I saw her hands clench into fists. There's nothing to say, she muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. You sold the house. You took everything. Her words were a blade, sharp and precise. But there was something else in her tone, fear. Maybe. Or desperation. It was enough to keep me pushing, to keep me searching for the truth beneath her anger. You think I took everything? I said, my voice trembling with a mix of hurt and defiance. What about what you took from me, Claire? The years I spent believing you needed me, sending you money I didn't have, while you were living with Victor, lying to my face. Do you know what that did to me? She turned then, her eyes flashing, but she didn't speak. I pressed on, the words spilling out like a dam breaking. I sold the house because I had to, Claire, because I was drowning in debt, in grief, in the realization that my daughter didn't care. But I'm not the villain here. Tell me what's going on. Tell me why Victor's so interested in our house. Her face paled, and for a moment, I thought she might run. But she didn't. She sank back into the chair, her shoulders slumping, and I saw the weight she carried, a burden I didn't yet understand. It's not what you think, she said, her voice low, almost pleading. Victor, he's not just some guy. He's powerful, Mom. He knows people. People who can make things happen or make things go away. He said the house was an opportunity, a way to secure our future. Our future, I echoed, my stomach twisting. Or his. She looked away, and that was answer enough. I leaned forward, ignoring the pain that shot through my ribs. Claire, what did he promise you? What did you promise him? She shook her head, her lips pressed tight, but I saw the crack in her armor, the fear she couldn't hide. He knows about the accident, doesn't he? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Her eyes snapped to mine, wide and startled, and I knew I'd hit something true. Mom, don't, she said, her voice breaking. You don't know what you're talking about. But I did. The pieces were falling into place, each one a shard of glass cutting deeper. The accident wasn't random. The face in my dream. The dark sedan. Victor's sudden interest in the house site all pointed to something sinister. Something I'd been too broken to see. "Claire," I said, my voice steady now. "Did Victor have something to do with the accident? Did he try to hurt me?" She stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor, her face a mask of panic. "You're wrong," she said, but her voice trembled, betraying her. You're confused. The accident was an accident. Victor wouldn't." She trailed off, her eyes darting to the door, and I realized she was scared not just of me, but of him. I reached for her hand, my fingers brushing hers, but she pulled away, her breath ragged. "I have to go," she said, and before I could stop her, she was out the door, her footsteps echoing down the hall. I lay back, my heart pounding. The monitors beep a frantic rhythm now. Claire was hiding something big, and Victor was at the center of it. I needed answers, but I was stuck here. My body a traitor, my daughter a stranger. I closed my eyes, trying to piece together the fragments of my memory accident. The face, the car. And then it hit me, a flash so vivid it stole my breath. The driver. I'd seen him before, not in a dream, but in a photo. Margaret had shown me, months ago, a picture of Victor with a man at some gala. A man with sharp features and cold eyes. Could it be him? I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking as I dialed Margaret again. "Evelyn, what's wrong?" She answered, her voice thick with concern. I told her about Claire's visit, about Victor, about my suspicion that the accident wasn't an accident. "I need you to find that photo," I said. "The one from the gala, with Victor and that man. I need to know who he is." Margaret promised to look, but her voice was hesitant, like she was afraid of what we'd uncover. I hung up, my mind racing, the truth closer than ever, but still out of reach. I wasn't just fighting for my life anymore. I was fighting for my daughter, for the truth, for the family we'd lost. The hospital room felt like a cage, the walls closing in as my mind churned with suspicion and fear. Claire's hurried exit left a void, her panic a confirmation that something was terribly wrong. I clutched the phone, my lifeline to the outside world, and tried to steady my breathing. The heart monitor's relentless beep mocked my attempts at calm, each pulse a reminder of how fragile I was, how close I'd come to losing everything. But I wasn't just fighting for my survival now, I was fighting for Claire, for the truth, for the chance to save what was left of us. The accident, Victor, the house site was all connected, and I was determined to unravel it, even if it broke me. Margaret called back that evening, her voice hushed, like she was afraid someone might overhear. "I found the photo. Evelyn," she said. "The man with Victor, it's his brother, Derek Grayson. He's not like Victor. He's got a record. Evelyn. Assault. Fraud. Things Victor's money kept quiet. I don't know what it means, but it doesn't feel right." My blood ran cold. Derek Grayson. The name sparked something, a flicker of memory from the accident. Those sharp features in the driver's seat. It was him. I was sure of it. But why? Why would Victor's brother target me? The house was gone. Sold. Useless to them now. Unless they didn't know. I thanked Margaret, promising to be careful, though I wasn't sure what that meant anymore. I needed to talk to Claire, to confront her with what I knew. But she wasn't answering her phone. Each unanswered call fueled my dread, a gnawing fear that she was in deeper than I'd realized. Victor wasn't just a manipulator who was dangerous, and Claire was caught in his web. I thought of her face in the hospital, the fear in her eyes, the way she'd flinched when I mentioned the accident. She knew something, maybe everything, and I had to find her before it was too late. The next morning, a detective stopped by, a tired-looking man named Officer Reynolds. He asked about the accident, jotting notes as I recounted what little I remembered. I hesitated, then told him about Derek Grayson, about my suspicion that the hit and run wasn't random. His eyebrows rose, but his face remained neutral. That's a serious accusation, Mrs. Harper, he said. Do you have any evidence? I didn't. Not yet. But I told him about Claire, about Victor, about the house. He listened, his pen moving slowly, and promised to look into it. But his tone was skeptical, and I knew he wouldn't dig deep unless I gave him more. After he left, I felt more alone than ever. The nurses came and went, their kindness a faint comfort against the storm in my mind. I kept replaying Claire's visit, her words, her fear. She'd said Victor was helping her. But helping her do what? Secure the house. Or something worse. I thought of the money from the sale, sitting untouched in my savings account. If Victor thought the house was still ours, he might believe there was still something to gain. But what? And why go so far as to try to kill me? I was lost in thought when my phone buzzed. A new text from Claire. Meet me at the old house. 8 p.m. Please. My heart leapt, then sank. The old house, our house. The one I'd sold. Why there? Was it a trap? Or was Claire finally ready to talk? I stared at the message, my fingers trembling. I was still weak, still hooked to machines. But I couldn't wait. I had to know. Against the nurses' protests, I signed myself out that afternoon, my body screaming with every step, but my resolve stronger than the pain. I took a cab to Maple Street, the familiar road stirring memories of happier times. The house looked the same, its white paint peeling, the porch swing still creaking in the wind. But it wasn't ours anymore. A young couple lived here now, their laughter spilling out when I'd handed over the keys. I stood across the street, hidden in the shadows, waiting for Claire. The street was quiet, the air heavy with the promise of rain. At 8:05, a car pulled UPA's sleek black sedan, just like the one from the accident. My breath caught as Claire stepped out, alone, her face pale in the streetlight's glow. She looked around, nervous, then walked toward the house, her steps hesitant. I started to cross the street, my heart pounding, when another car appeared, its headlights cutting through the dusk. A man got out, tall, sharp-featured, unmistakable. Derek Grayson. My blood froze. Claire didn't see him, her back to the street as she stood on the porch, texting. I wanted to scream, to warn her, but my voice was trapped, my body too weak to run. Derek moved closer, his steps silent, predatory, and I knew then that I'd been right. The accident wasn't random, and Claire was in danger. The streetlight flickered, casting jagged shadows across Maple Street as I watched Derek Grayson stalk toward Claire. My heart thundered, each beat a hammer against my fragile ribs. But I couldn't move. Not yet. My body was a traitor, still weak from the ICU, my legs trembling under the weight of fear and determination. Claire stood on the porch of our old house, oblivious, her phone glowing in her hand as she typed. I wanted to call out, to stop whatever was about to happen. But the memory of the accident off Derek's face behind the wheel kept me frozen, hidden in the shadows across the street. I clutched my phone, my thumb hovering over 911. But something stopped me. If I called now, Derek might run, and I'd lose my chance to understand why. Why me? Why the house? Why Claire? I needed answers. And Claire was the key. She'd asked me to meet her here. Her text a desperate plea. But now I wondered if she'd known Derek would come. Was she part of this? Or was she a pawn? Like I'd been. The thought twisted my heart. But I pushed it aside. She was my daughter. I had to believe there was still something worth saving. Derek was closer now, his silhouette looming as he reached the porch steps. Claire turned, startled, her phone slipping from her hand and clattering to the ground. Derek, she said, her voice sharp with fear. What are you doing here? He smiled, a cold, predatory grin that sent a shiver through me. You didn't think I'd let you do this alone, did you? He said, his voice smooth, like he was discussing the weather. Claire backed up, her hands raised, and I saw the panic in her eyes. The same panic I'd seen in the hospital. She wasn't in control. She was scared. I stepped forward, my body protesting, and called out, Claire. My voice was weak, but it carried, cutting through the night. Both of them froze, Derek's head snapping toward me, his eyes narrowing. Claire's face crumpled, a mix of relief and terror. Mom, she whispered. But Derek moved faster, closing the distance between them, his hand gripping her arm. Stay out of this, Evelyn, he said, his voice low. Dangerous. This doesn't concern you anymore. Doesn't concern me, I said, forcing myself to stand taller, though every muscle screamed. You tried to kill me, Derek. You ran me off the road. And now you're here, with my daughter. Tell me why. His smile faltered, just for a moment, but it was enough to confirm my worst fears. He'd been the driver. The accident was no accident. Claire pulled free, stumbling back, her eyes darting between us. Mom, I didn't know, she said, her voice breaking. I swear, I didn't know he'd go that far. Her words hit like a punch. Confirmation that she'd been involved, even if she hadn't meant for it to go this far. I wanted to believe her, to cling to the hope that she was still my daughter. But the truth was a weight I couldn't ignore. Tell me everything, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. Derek laughed, a cold, hollow sound, and stepped toward me. You're tougher than I thought, Evelyn, he said. Victor said you'd be easy to handle. A lonely widow, clinging to a house she couldn't afford. But you went and sold it, didn't you? Screwed up everything. The pieces clicked into place, sharp and brutal. Victor had wanted the house not for Claire, but for himself. A real estate deal, maybe, or something shadier, something tied to his empire of greed. And Derek, his loyal attack dog, had been sent to clear the way. You thought killing me would get you the house? I asked, my voice trembling with rage. You thought Claire would just hand it over? Derek's smile returned. Crueler now. She didn't have a choice, he said, glancing at Claire, who was shaking, tears streaming down her face. She's in too deep. Aren't you, sweetheart? Claire sobbed, her hands covering her face, and I saw the truth in her brokenness. She'd been manipulated, used, just as I had. But she'd still chosen this path, still lied, still betrayed me. I took a step closer, ignoring the pain. My eyes locked on Derek. Let her go, I said. Whatever you and Victor planned, it's over. The house is gone. There's nothing left for you here. He laughed again, but there was an edge to it, a crack in his confidence. You think it's that simple? He said. Victor doesn't lose, Evelyn. And neither do I. Before I could respond, Claire lunged, grabbing a loose board from the porch and swinging it at Derek. It connected with a sickening crack, and he stumbled, cursing, blood trickling from his temple. Run, Mom, Claire screamed, but I couldn't. Not from her. Not from this. I grabbed her hand, pulling her toward me, and we stumbled down the steps, the night swallowing us as Derek's shouts echoed behind. We ran, Claire's hand clutching mine, her breath ragged as we stumbled through the dark. The pain in my body was afire, each step a reminder of the accident, of the ICU, of how close I'd come to losing everything. But I didn't care. Claire was with me, and for the first time in years, I felt her need for me, her fear binding us together, if only for this moment. Behind us, Derek's curses faded, but I knew he wouldn't stop. Not him. Not Victor. They were predators, and we were prey unless I found a way to fight back. We ducked into an alley, the shadows shielding us as we caught our breath. Claire was trembling, her face streaked with tears, her designer clothes torn from our escape. Mom, she whispered, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry. I didn't know it would come to this. I didn't know he'd hurt you. Her words were a lifeline, but they also cut deep. She hadn't known about the accident, but she'd known enough to lie, to manipulate, to let Victor pull her into his world. Tell me everything, I said, my voice low but firm. No more lies. Claire, what did Victor want? Why the house? She hesitated, her eyes darting to the street, as if expecting Derek to appear. Then she nodded, her shoulders slumping in defeat. It was about money, she said. Victor's been buying up properties in the neighborhood. He said our house was the last piece, the one he needed for some big development deal. He promised me a cut. Mom. A future. I thought I was doing it for us. For us, I said, my voice sharp. You lied to me, Claire. You took my money, lived in his penthouse, while I worked myself to death. How was that for us? She flinched, her tears falling faster. But I didn't stop. You chose him over me. And now he's trying to kill me. What else are you hiding? She shook her head, her voice barely audible. I didn't know about the accident. I swear. Victor said he'd handle things, that he'd convince you to sell. But when you didn't, he got angry. He said you were in the way, that we'd lose everything if you didn't sign. I thought he meant legally. Mom. I didn't know Derek would. She trailed off, sobbing, and I felt my anger waver. replaced by a hollow ache. She was my daughter, manipulated or not. And I couldn't hate her. Not completely. We need to go to the police, I said. But Claire grabbed my arm, her eyes wide with panic. No. Mom. You don't understand. Victor has people everywhere, cops, lawyers, judges. If we go to them, he'll know. He'll come for us. Her fear was real, a living thing that wrapped around us both. I wanted to argue, to tell her we had no choice. But the memory of Derek's cold smile stopped me. She was right. Victor was powerful, and we were nothing to him, nothing but obstacles. Then what do we do? I asked, my voice softer now. Claire looked at me, her eyes searching mine, and for the first time, I saw a spark of the girl I'd raised, the one who'd trusted me once. We fight, she said, her voice trembling but resolute. I know things, Mom. Things about Victor, about his deals. I kept records, texts, emails, documents. If we can get to them, we can bring him down. My heart leapt, a flicker of hope in the darkness. Where are they? I asked. She hesitated, then said, at his penthouse. In my room, hidden in a lockbox. But it's not safe, Mom. Derek's probably already told him I ran. I nodded, my mind racing. The penthouse was a fortress, but it was our only shot. If we could get those records, we could expose Victor, maybe even Derek. It was a long shot, but it was something. We moved quickly, slipping through back streets to avoid being seen. My body screamed with every step, but adrenaline kept me going, fueled by the need to protect Claire. To end this, we reached my apartment, a small, bare space that felt like a stranger's compared to our old home. Inside, Claire collapsed onto the couch, her face pale, her hands shaking. I locked the door, checking the windows, my paranoia a living thing. We'll go tomorrow, I said. At dawn, when they won't expect us. Claire nodded, but her eyes were distant, haunted. Mom, she said softly, I didn't mean for any of this. I thought I could handle Victor, that I could be someone. But I was wrong. I hurt you, and I'll never forgive myself. Her words broke something in me, a dam I'd built to keep the pain at bay. I sat beside her, taking her hand, and for the first time in years, she didn't pull away. We'll fix this, I said, my voice thick with tears. Together. Dawn broke over the city, a pale light filtering through my apartment's thin curtains. Claire and I hadn't slept. Our nerves too raw. Our plan too fragile. We sat at my small kitchen table, sipping bitter coffee, mapping out our next move. Victor's penthouse was downtown, a glass tower that screamed wealth and power. Getting in would be hard. Security cameras, doormen, keycard locks, but Claire knew the building's routines, the gaps in its defenses. She'd lived there. After all, a fact that still twisted my heart. But I pushed the hurt aside. This wasn't about blame anymore. It was about survival, about justice, about saving my daughter from the mess she'd made. We'll go in through the service entrance, Claire said, her voice steady despite the shadows under her eyes. There's a delivery at 6 a.m. The guard's distracted then, and I still have my keycard. It should work. Should. The word hung between us, A reminder of how much could go wrong. But we had no choice. The records Claire had kept, texts, emails, contracts, were our only leverage against Victor. If we could get them, we could take them to the press, to someone outside his reach. It was a desperate plan, but desperation was all we had. We left the apartment as the city woke, blending into the early morning crowd. My body ached, each step a reminder of the accident. But I kept pace with Claire, her determination fueling mine. The penthouse loomed ahead, its glass facade reflecting the sunrise like a cold, unblinking eye. Claire led me to the service entrance, a narrow door tucked behind a loading dock. She swiped her keycard, and my breath caught as the lock clicked green. We slipped inside, the air cool and metallic, the hum of machinery masking our steps. The service elevator took us to the penthouse floor, my heart pounding as the numbers climbed. Claire's hand trembled in mine, but her jaw was set, her eyes fierce. "My room's at the end of the hall," she whispered as the doors opened. The hallway was silent, the kind of quiet that felt alive, watchful. We moved quickly, Claire's keycard granting us access to the penthouse itself. Inside, it was a world of luxury marble floors, crystal chandeliers, a view that stretched across the city. But it felt hollow, a stage for Victor's ego, not a home. Claire led me to her room, a space that screamed wealth but lacked warmth. She knelt by the bed, pulling out a small lockbox hidden beneath the floorboards. Her fingers shook as she entered the combination, and I held my breath, praying it was still there. The lock clicked, and she pulled out a USB drive, her face flooding with relief. "This is it," she said, clutching it like a lifeline. "Everything I have on Victor, his deals, his bribes, his threats." Before I could respond, the door to the room swung open. Victor stood there, his tailored suit pristine, his smile as cold as ice. "Claire," he said, his voice smooth, "you didn't think I'd let you walk away, did you?" My heart stopped. Derek was behind him, his face bruised from Claire's attack, his eyes burning with rage. I stepped in front of Claire, my body screaming, but my resolve unbreakable. "Leave her alone," I said, my voice steady despite the fear. Victor laughed, a sound that chilled me to the bone. "Evelyn, you're as stubborn as ever," he said, "but you're out of your depth. That drive won't help you. No one will believe you over me." He stepped closer, and I saw the truth in his eyes. She wasn't just powerful. He was untouchable, or so he thought. Claire clutched the drive, her voice shaking but defiant. "You're wrong, Victor," she said. "I know what you've done. The bribes, the foreclosures, the people you've hurt. It's all here. And I'm not afraid anymore." Her words were a spark, igniting something in me. I grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the door. But Derek moved faster, blocking our path. "You're not going anywhere," he growled, his hand reaching for Claire. I didn't think. I lunged, shoving him with all the strength I had left. He stumbled, surprised, and Claire darted past, the drive still in her hand. We ran, the penthouse a blur, Victor's shouts echoing behind us. The service elevator was still open, a miracle, and we dove inside, the doors closing just as Derek reached us. As the elevator descended, Claire sobbed, clutching the drive, and I held her, my heart breaking and healing all at once. We weren't safe yet, but we had a chance. And for the first time, I believed we could win. The elevator doors opened to the loading dock, and we stumbled out, the cold morning air hitting us like a slap. Claire clung to the USB drive, her lifeline, her redemption, while I scanned the alley for any sign of Victor or Derek. The city was waking up, delivery trucks rumbling past, but we were still exposed, still vulnerable. My body screamed with every step. The pain from the accident, a constant reminder of how close I'd come to losing everything. But I had Claire now, her hand in mine, and that was enough to keep me moving. We need to get somewhere safe, I said, my voice hoarse. Somewhere Victor can't reach us. Claire nodded, her face pale but determined. There's a journalist, she said. Lydia Carter. She's been digging into Victor's deals for years. If we get this drive to her, she'll know what to do. I didn't ask how Claire knew her. Didn't want to know what else she'd been hiding. All that mattered was the plan. The faint hope that we could expose Victor before he found us. We hailed a cab, slipping into the back seat as the driver eyed us warily. I gave him the address of a coffee shop across town, a place I knew was always crowded, where we could blend in. Claire was silent, her eyes fixed on the USB drive, her fingers tracing its edges like it was a talisman. I wanted to ask her more about Victor, about how deep she'd fallen, but the words felt heavy, unnecessary. She'd already told me enough, her guilt a weight we both carried. At the coffee shop, we found a corner table, the hum of conversation and clinking cups a shield against the world outside. Claire called Lydia, her voice low, urgent, arranging a meeting at a park nearby. She'll be there in an hour, Claire said, hanging up. She's cautious, but she trusts me. I nodded, my eyes scanning the room. Every stranger a potential threat. The paranoia was exhausting, but I couldn't let my guard down. Not when Victor and Derek were still out there. We left for the park, walking quickly, our heads down. The air was crisp, the trees bare, their branches clawing at the gray sky. Lydia was waiting on a bench, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and a notebook clutched to her chest. She stood as we approached, her gaze flicking between us. You must be Evelyn, she said, her voice brisk but kind. Claire's told me a lot about you. I glanced at Claire, surprised, but she avoided my eyes, her focus on the drive. We sat, and Claire handed Lydia the USB. Everything's on here, she said. Victor's deals, his bribes, his threats. It's enough to ruin him. Lydia's eyes lit up, but her expression remained guarded. This is big, she said, slipping the drive into her bag. But it's dangerous. Victor's got connections everywhere. Are you sure you're ready for this? Claire nodded, but I saw the fear in her eyes. The same fear I felt. Before I could speak, a shadow fell over us. I looked up, my heart stopping as Derek stepped into view. His face bruised, but his smile as cold as ever. You really thought you could run, he said, his voice dripping with menace. Claire gasped, clutching my arm, and Lydia stood, her hand on her phone, ready to call for help. But Derek was faster, pulling a knife from his jacket, its blade glinting in the pale light. Give me the drive, he said, his eyes locked on Lydia. I stepped in front of Claire, my body a shield, my voice steady despite the terror. It's over. Derek, I said. The drive's gone. Lydia's already sent copies to her editor. You can't stop this. It was a bluff. But it landed. Derek's smile faltered, his grip on the knife tightening. You're lying, he growled. But there was doubt in his voice. A crack I could exploit. Try me, I said, my voice stronger now. You and Victor are done. The police know about the accident. About you. Walk away, or you'll lose everything. He hesitated, his eyes darting between us, and I saw the moment he broke. He lowered the knife, stepping back, his face a mask of rage and defeat. This isn't over. He spat, then turned and disappeared into the trees. Lydia exhaled, her hands shaking as she clutched her bag. I need to get this to my editor now, she said, already moving. Stay safe. Both of you. She hurried off, leaving Claire and me alone. The park eerily quiet. Claire collapsed onto the bench, sobbing, and I held her, my own tears falling. We'd won. For now. But the cost was heavy. The wounds deep. I'm sorry, Mom, she whispered, and I knew she meant it. The park was silent as Claire and I sat on the bench, her sobs quieting in my arms. The USB drive was gone, in Lydia's hands, on its way to expose Victor and Derek for what they were. But victory felt hollow, the weight of everything we'd lost pressing down on us. I held Claire tighter, her warmth a reminder of the girl she'd been, the daughter I'd loved through every mistake. We weren't healed. Not yet. But we were here. Together. And that was a start. We stayed in the park until dusk. Too afraid to move. Too raw to speak. When my phone buzzed, I flinched, expecting Victor's voice. But it was Officer Reynolds. Mrs. Harper, he said, his tone urgent. We've got Derek Grayson in custody. A witness saw him at the park, matched him to the description of the hit and run. We're looking into Victor now. Thanks to your tip. I exhaled, relief flooding me. But it was tempered by caution. Victor was still out there, and men like him didn't go down easily. I told Claire, and her eyes widened, a mix of hope and fear. What about the drive? She asked. I shook my head. Lydia's got it. It's out of our hands now. She nodded, her face pale, and I saw the guilt in her eyes, the weight of her choices. I messed everything up, Mom, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I thought I could control it, that I could be someone important. But I hurt you, and I'll never forgive myself. I took her hands, my own trembling. You made mistakes, Claire, I said. So did I? I sold the house without telling you, thinking it would fix things. But it only made them worse. We're both to blame, but we're also both here. That's what matters. She looked at me, tears spilling over. And for the first time in years, I saw my daughter, not the stranger she'd become. We went back to my apartment, the small space feeling less empty with Claire there. Over the next few days, the story broke. Lydia's article hit the front page, detailing Victor's shady deals, his bribes, his threats. The USB drive had been a goldmine, evidence that tied him to illegal foreclosures, tax evasion, even connections to organized crime. Derek's arrest was just the beginning. Victor was taken into custody a week later, his empire crumbling under the weight of the truth. Claire and I watched it unfold from the sidelines. Our lives forever changed. She moved in with me, leaving the penthouse behind. Her designer clothes replaced by jeans and sweatshirts. It wasn't easy. There were arguments, tears, moments when the past threatened to pull us apart. But we talked. Really talked. For the first time in years. She told me about Victor. How his charm had drawn her in. How she'd wanted to escape the grief of losing Dad. The pressure of being my daughter. I told her about my own pain. The loneliness of raising her alone. The betrayal of her lies. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was understanding. A bridge we could build on. The money from the house sat in my savings account. Untouched. I'd planned to use it for myself. A new start. But now I saw it differently. It was ours. Claire's and mine. A chance to rebuild what we'd lost. We talked about starting a small business. Maybe a bookstore. A nod to my years at the library. It was a dream. Fragile but real. And it gave us something to hold on to. Months later, I stood in the park where we'd faced Derek. The trees now green with spring. Claire was beside me. Her smile tentative but genuine. The scars were still there, mine from the accident. Hers from guilt, but they were healing. Slowly. I thought of the house. Of Tom. Of the life we'd had. It was gone. But we weren't. We were still here. Fighting. Learning. Loving. And as we walked away, hand in hand, I knew that was enough.